Hey warriors, the very first breath you take when you wake up belongs to you, not to your job, not to your problems, not to anyone else, just you. But most people give it away instantly, eyes barely open, and they're already trapped in their own mental noise. The 1% who rule their thoughts before 8 a.m. aren't special. They just understood something most never will. Your mind in the morning is like wet cement. Whatever touches it first leaves a lasting mark. For 99% of people, what hits it first is panic, doubt, stress, emptiness. Their entire day is lost before the sun fully rises, and they don't even realize it. Your whole life is either won or lost in that first hour, not in the afternoon when you're drained, not at night when you replay mistakes. Right there, in the quiet before 8 a.m. Thoughts aren't random. They're planted. If you don't plant them yourself, something else will. Your environment plants them. Your memories plant them. Your fears plant them. That's why the 1% take control early, before the invasion begins. They don't wait for motivation. They don't hope for a good day. They construct it silently, with intention. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Waking up at 5 a.m. isn't the point. Waking up differently is. Your mind is the most valuable thing you own, and in the morning, the gates are wide open. Everything wants in. The ones who win stand guard. They decide what enters. They decide what stays. They decide what shapes the next 16 hours of their life. You've been taught that willpower is everything, that discipline fixes it all. But no one told you both are built or destroyed in the first 60 minutes of your day. You can't discipline a mind that's already been hijacked. You can't willpower your way out of a morning that began with surrender. Marcus Aurelius also said, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." People think they're in control because they make decisions and handle responsibilities, but they're not controlling anything. They're reacting to thoughts they didn't choose, emotions they didn't create, a mental state they didn't design. Winners don't react in the morning. They create. They set the frequency. They choose the station. Everything else tunes in. This is survival. If you don't control your mind before 8 a.m., you'll spend the rest of the day being controlled by it. That's not living. That's being lived. If you're ready to master your mind before the world wakes up, type this in the comments right now. I own my morning. Number 1, they don't just wake up, they take command. Waking up and taking command are not the same thing. 99% of people wake up and let the day happen to them. Winners wake up and make the day bend. There's a gap between opening your eyes and your mind fully switching on. In that gap, everything is decided. 5 seconds, maybe 10. Most people don't even know it exists, but it does, and it matters. When you wake up, your brain is shifting from unconscious to conscious. It's soft, exposed, wide open. No defenses, no armor. It's booting up. And during that boot sequence, you choose which programs run first. Winners choose focus, gratitude, intention, strength. Everyone else defaults to worry, regret, distraction, weakness. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." They don't roll over. They don't reach for comfort. They don't ease into the day. They strike first. They control their breath, their posture, their first thought, because that first thought becomes the leader. Everything after it either follows or fights it. Your body wakes up before your mind. In that space without intention, your mind defaults to whatever it was running before sleep. Old patterns, old fears, old stories. Winners interrupt that process. They refuse to let yesterday's mental state become today's starting point. They reset deliberately. Taking command means you don't ask how you feel, you tell yourself. You don't wait to see if you have energy, you decide you do. You don't wonder if today will be good, you declare it will be what you build. This sounds harsh because it is. Morning is not the time for passivity. Being passive in the morning is submission. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." Your mind is a kingdom, and every morning there's a moment when the throne is empty. If you don't sit on it, something else will. Anxiety will, doubt will, laziness will. And once it sits down, removing it is hard. But claiming that throne early, fast and with certainty makes everything else bow. Your emotions bow. Your impulses bow. Your excuses bow. Perfection isn't the goal. Sovereignty is. It's refusing to be a passenger in your own mind. Most people spend their entire lives being driven around by thoughts they never invited. Winners get in the driver's seat before the engine starts. They don't wait to feel ready. They create ready. They don't wait to feel strong. They decide to be strong. That decision, made in the first 90 seconds of consciousness, changes everything. You're not a victim of your mental state. You're the creator of it, but only if you act early, only if you act fast, only if you wake up like you mean it. Winners don't hope for a good morning, they engineer it. That's why they win. Not later, not eventually, but right there before 8 a.m. Write this in the comments and feel it. I lead my thoughts. I lead my day. Number 2, they filter their mind before thoughts settle. Your mind doesn't come with a filter. It absorbs everything, every sound, every feeling, every memory trying to resurface. In the morning, as consciousness forms, your mind is at its most absorbent, like a sponge with no selectivity. Winners understand this. They know the first 15 minutes after waking is when mental contamination happens, so they don't let everything in. They filter. Filtering isn't about denying reality. It's about choosing which version of reality you focus on first. Multiple truths exist at the same time. You have problems, but you also have strengths. You have fears, but you also have power. Most people let their mind grab the heaviest, darkest thought and carry it into the day. Winners intercept it. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Before 8 a.m., reaction speed is everything. A thought enters, and you have 3, maybe 5 seconds to decide if it stays or goes. Most people don't even realize they have that choice. A worry appears, and they accept it as truth, as law, as something unavoidable. Winners don't. They treat thoughts like apps trying to open on their system, and they close the ones that don't serve them immediately. This takes practice and awareness. Your mind will offer you garbage every morning, not because you're broken, but because its job is to scan for threats, remember pain, and prevent mistakes. That's survival mode. Survival mode doesn't care about happiness. It cares about keeping you alive. So it feeds you fear, doubt, and every reason the day might go wrong. Winners don't fight this. They expect it. They wake up knowing their mind will try to pull them into darkness, and they're prepared. They have a counter-thought ready, a mantra, a truth chosen in advance to replace the lie. When the thought says, "You're not ready," they answer, "I'm built for this." When it says, "This is too hard," they respond, "I've handled harder." They don't argue, they replace. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." That's the trap. People suffer in the morning over things that haven't happened. They imagine every possible failure, every disappointment, every pain. By the time they leave their bed, they're already exhausted, having lived through tragedies that never occurred. Winners don't let imagination run loose. They aim it. Resilience is formed, quietly, consistently, without applause. You begin to make decisions differently, not from a place of, "Will this be accepted?" but from a place of, "Does this align?" You start trusting your instincts more because you've spent time with them. You've listened long enough to separate intuition from insecurity. That kind of self-knowledge can't be taught. It has to be earned through silence, through space, through the mental stillness that teaches you how to carry your own weight. That clarity doesn't shout, it doesn't announce itself, yet others feel it in how you speak, how you move, and how you no longer chase what used to pull you apart. Solitude sharpens your boundaries. You stop saying yes to avoid disappointing someone. You stop engaging in conversations that drain your spirit. You learn that no is not unkind, it's honest. And honesty, when cultivated in solitude, becomes a way of living. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You don't need to justify your distance or explain your focus. You simply live it because you've done the work in silence, and now your energy speaks for itself. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Solitude helps you see the difference. It pulls you out of imagined disasters, false narratives, and inherited fears. It plants you in what's real. And in that soil, something unshakable grows. A sense of self that doesn't shift with trends. A direction that doesn't wobble when misunderstood. A strength that isn't loud, but lasting. When you return to the world after time alone, you come back different, not distant, but deliberate, not bitter, but boundaried. You don't speak to be heard, you speak because your words come from stillness, not noise. You're not easily swayed, not easily shaken, because you know the ground you stand on. You built it yourself, one quiet moment at a time. Solitude isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's the training ground for self-trust, self-respect, and self-direction. It's not where life ends, it's where it begins to deepen. And the person who has learned to walk through their own mind, alone and awake, becomes someone the world can't easily move, because they no longer belong to the noise. They belong to themselves. There comes a quiet turning point where the version of you that once felt essential begins to fall apart, not with a dramatic crash, but with a slow, undeniable erosion. The old self, the one who needed approval, who bent to fit into spaces too small, who rehearsed words just to be liked, begins to feel heavy, outdated, false. You try to carry it a little longer out of habit, fear, or guilt, but it drags, it stiffens. Eventually, it begins to rot. That's not failure, that's evolution. When something dies within you, it isn't always a loss. Sometimes it's the first breath of something deeper, the start of a more honest existence. At first, it's disorienting. You don't feel quite like yourself anymore, but you also can't go back. The mask doesn't fit. The old patterns feel exhausting. You say less, but what you say carries more weight. You stop explaining, not because you have nothing to say, but because you no longer feel the need to be understood by everyone. The chase for approval fades, and in its place, something steady grows. You move with intent. You don't fill silence out of nervousness. You don't perform your personality to make others comfortable. You simply stand like a mountain, still, watchful, unmoved. It's strange how people respond when this shift happens. Some distance themselves, others question what changed. They say, "You seem colder, more distant, less fun." What they're really sensing is that you've stopped making yourself available for emotional labor you never consented to. You've withdrawn from the game of constant reassurance, from being overly palatable. You're no longer addicted to being liked. And that absence makes people uncomfortable because now they can no longer predict you. Unpredictability in someone who once conformed feels threatening. But here's what they don't see. That version of you needed to go. It needed to fall away so you could finally move freely. So you could stop editing your truth to fit someone else's narrative. Carl Jung wrote, "We cannot change anything unless we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses." You didn't kill your old self out of hatred. You outgrew it out of truth. You stopped condemning your need for space, your desire for solitude, your craving for a simpler, quieter strength. In that acceptance, the old self was released, not as punishment, but as a rite of passage. You don't need to explain this process to others. Those who truly understand won't ask, and those who don't were never meant to walk with this next version of you anyway. You start noticing who respects your silence and who only knew you for your noise. You see who valued your essence and who only loved your accessibility. That clarity is painful, but necessary. It separates the seasonal from the lifelong, clears your circle, removes emotional clutter, and creates space for alignment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That's what the disappearance of your old self is. It feels like loss, but it opens a path where you no longer chase connection, but attract it by being grounded. A path where you don't need to be known by many to feel known within yourself. You don't seek mirrors in others anymore. You've found your own reflection, and it's enough. There's something sacred about becoming someone who no longer needs to announce their change. You don't post about it, you don't campaign for recognition. You simply live differently, and the difference becomes impossible to ignore. People feel it in your energy, decisions, and detachment from petty dramas. They sense a calm that can't be faked because it was earned in the quiet dismantling of your former self. In the nights you doubted everything, you still chose to continue. In the moments you wanted to explain, but chose instead to evolve. You're no longer triggered by the same things, no longer drawn to the same conversations, no longer pulled to be constantly available. At first that feels like loneliness. Then it becomes freedom, because you realize you were never truly connected to those people, places, or roles. You were connected to who you had to become to stay there, and now that person is gone. Seneca said, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." This isn't just a shift in mindset, it's a rebirth. Like all rebirths, it's quiet at first, underrated, uncelebrated, but incredibly real. And over time, it becomes undeniable. Not because you announce it, but because you embody it. You become someone who moves with quiet authority, who doesn't need to explain values. They live them. Someone whose absence speaks as loudly as presence once did. Not out of pride, but out of peace. The old self was necessary. It got you here. It learned hard lessons, absorbed wounds, fought for belonging. But its time is over. You don't owe it anything except gratitude and release. And now, in its place, you stand clearer, stronger, unapologetically you. No longer looking back for validation, no longer reaching forward in desperation. Grounded here, now whole. That, more than anything, makes you impossible to categorize. You've stopped being what the world told you to be. You've become who you were always meant to be. True presence doesn't come from how much you say or how loudly you say it. It comes from how little you need to say. There's a kind of quiet power in someone who has stopped seeking validation, a weight in their stillness. You feel it when they enter a room and don't try to control the space. They simply are. They don't announce their presence because their energy carries it. They don't push to be noticed. Yet, they're the one people watch. It's not arrogance. It's not performance. It's the confidence of someone no longer hungry for permission to exist. In a world obsessed with appearances, that restraint is rare. And because it's rare, it's magnetic. Real strength is quiet, not hidden, but uninterested in performance. It's the product of someone who has met their fear, sat with it, walked through pain without turning it into a show, and doesn't need to posture. They've already faced the abyss and returned without needing to prove anything to anyone. Carl Jung once said, A man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them. When you've done that internal work, it changes how you move. It changes how you speak or how often you choose not to. Silence becomes a statement. You stop reacting to every opinion. You stop defending every move. You let go of the compulsion to clarify yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you, not out of apathy, but out of alignment. You understand that if someone doesn't feel your value, no amount of words will make them see it. And if someone does feel your value, you won't need to convince them. You conserve your energy. You speak only when it matters. When you do, people listen, not because you're louder, but because you're selective. Your words weren't scattered, they were earned. They weren't about being heard, they were about expressing something real, rooted. There's a power in that detachment. Not the cold kind that pushes people away, but the self-contained kind that doesn't cling to outcomes. When you no longer rely on people to affirm your worth, you free them from carrying your identity and free yourself from needing to be liked, validated, or praised. That freedom makes you light, but heavy in the eyes of others, because your self-possession is something they feel, and it unsettles those still measuring themselves through others' eyes. When they meet someone who doesn't need the crowd, they're forced to face that they might still be living for it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one." That's the essence of commanding without words. You don't try to impress, you just embody what you value. And the irony, when you stop trying to impress, you often become unforgettable, not because you shouted, but because your silence had depth, because your stillness had direction. You weren't trying to win the room. You were rooted in something deeper than performance. People mistake detachment for disinterest, but true detachment is the highest form of clarity. It means you can engage without being absorbed. You can be present without performing. You can care without clinging. And that clarity speaks louder than charisma. When someone can't be shaken by judgment, can't be baited into overreacting, can't be swayed by flattery or criticism, they start to feel like an immovable force. And we don't just respect forces, we adjust ourselves around them. That's what sets apart the grounded from the attention-hungry. The grounded don't compete for the spotlight, they carry their own light. They don't chase compliments or performance-based connection. They're building something quiet but lasting, something that doesn't crumble when the room goes silent, something that doesn't shift with public opinion. People notice, they always do. In a culture that rewards the loud, the steady become mysterious. The ones who don't need to prove themselves feel like they've already proven something far more important: self-mastery. There's no need to chase recognition when you move with intention. No need to explain your pace when you trust your timing. The less you say, the more room others have to feel what you are. And when your presence is built on depth, not performance, it leaves an imprint. Not because it's loud, but because it's grounded. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." Quiet power is built on that principle. You decide who you are, and then you live it, not for applause, but for alignment. That's why certain people command attention without asking for it. They don't chase it, they don't ask for it. They simply move in alignment with who they are. And that kind of presence, grounded in inner stillness, always speaks louder than noise. It doesn't need to shout, it just is. There's a strange freedom when you stop needing care, not because you've become bitter or numb, but because you've outgrown the illusion that your strength depends on how others treat you. A subtle, permanent shift happens inside. The world no longer has the power to shake you. Its silence doesn't unsettle you. Its applause doesn't seduce you. You move from a different place, from a center that doesn't ask for permission, doesn't beg to be seen, and doesn't fall apart when ignored. That's the paradox. You only gain real power when you stop needing to be rescued, not from pain, but from the discomfort of being alone in your truth. For a long time, we're taught that care from others equals safety, that we must be heard to feel real, understood to feel valid, held to feel whole. But the deeper truth is that power isn't given by attention, love, or recognition. It's built in silence, brick by brick, through the choices you make when no one is watching. Once you stop craving the emotional resources of others, something remarkable happens. You become your own source. You realize you were never powerless. You were just waiting for permission to be strong. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." This new form of power begins with acceptance, not just of your strengths, but of your fears, your darkness, your disappointments, your unmet needs. You accept that maybe they won't understand you, that maybe no one will love you exactly as you've always wanted, and instead of fighting it, you exhale. You stop resisting what is. You stop trying to control how others feel about you. In that surrender, a new kind of control emerges, not over people or outcomes, but over yourself. You stop explaining what doesn't need explaining. You stop handing out pieces of your soul for temporary comfort. You no longer make yourself smaller to be digestible. You no longer bend your voice to avoid tension. You simply stand in your life, unfolded, unedited, and let the chips fall where they may. Some will fall away, some will come closer, but none of that changes who you are, because now you define your own worth. You've stopped outsourcing it. You've stopped chasing love as proof of existence, and because of that, you're no longer fragile. You're rooted. That doesn't mean you stop feeling. It doesn't mean you wall yourself off or walk through life untouched. It means you stop expecting external care to fix what only internal clarity can. You stop making your healing a group project. You understand that peace is built alone and maintained by protecting that solitude, not by constantly seeking validation. You no longer need mirrors in someone else's eyes. The mirror is internal and it doesn't distort. You stop fearing disconnection because the deepest connection with yourself has already been established. That's what makes you strong. Not cold, not distant, but self-contained. People can come and go. You can love and be loved, but your foundation doesn't shake with their presence or absence. That's not detachment from life. It's engagement on your own terms. You stop being a guest in your own mind. You become the architect. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." When your attention is no longer hooked by who notices you, who cares, who claps, or who stays, you redirect that energy inward, not in isolation, but with intention. You ask different questions, not, "Why did they treat me that way?" but, "What can I build with what's left?" You start turning pain into discipline, silence into strategy, disappointments into design. You're not stuck anymore. You're not frozen, waiting for validation to carry you forward. You've become the current. This kind of power, grounded, quiet, untouchable, isn't handed to you by fortune or people. It's forged the moment you stop needing others and meet yourself where you are. And from that meeting, something honest rises, a self no longer edited to please, a direction no longer influenced by fear of being misunderstood, a life that's finally yours, not borrowed from expectations, but owned. You move with clarity, not desperation. You hold space for your own emotions without leaking them. You don't crumble when the applause stops, because you never built your rhythm around it. You don't need to be followed to feel you're going somewhere. You know where you're going. People feel your gravity, not because you demand it, but because you no longer need it. That's rare. When you stop needing care, don't mistake it for loss. It's a return, a reclaiming, a sharpening. You've taken back the most important thing, the ability to guide yourself, to walk through disappointment without folding, to be unseen without disappearing, to be misunderstood without abandoning yourself. That's when life begins to move in your favor. Not because the world understands you, but because you've stopped needing it to. In that space, you become unshakable. Not because you were born that way, but because you chose it again and again until your mind finally believed you were already enough. You don't need to be seen to be powerful. You don't need to be understood to be whole. The moment you stop waiting for the world to care is the moment you shape yourself into something it can't ignore. Quietly, fully, unapologetically. Thank you for walking this path today, for being part of Stoic Journal. If this message spoke to you, there's another video on your screen that will take you even deeper. Watch it next. Keep building, keep becoming.